Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This might be a little bit of a longer one. We'll see what happens here. Plenty going on, as one might expect. And let me just dive right in here. First of all, the issues in Cincinnati, Ohio, just south of me, about 50 minutes south of me, where, of course, individuals white individuals specifically, were beat up and knocked to the ground. And, of course, felony assault and battery, the whole thing, outside of the Cincinnati Music Festival. This is an ongoing problem, and there are a number of reasons for it, as we are well aware, and the media, of course, is deflecting from the real reasons behind all of this. So, let me make a couple of comments just very quickly. First of all, many people are aware of the community that exists in Arkansas, where it is essentially, again, whites only. And they've basically said we have the right to sell land that we own and, again, distribute said property to white individuals only. It's it's their property specifically, so they would call it my property. It's their property. They can distribute it any way that they'd like. They have zero crime, the whole thing. But then, of course, the so-called inverse or opposite way of looking at it, there's a group of individuals who happen to be Black Americans, and they live in Georgia, and they're doing the exact same thing. Now, which one of those two groups does the media scrutinize? It's not the blacks, it's the whites. So again, this right here is one of the things that is becoming blatantly obvious, of course, in our country, specifically regarding the media. That they, of course, are looking for racial division as much as humanly possible. We know, again, who pulls the strings on that racial division and why that is in fact the case. Again, it's part of the Jewish DNA, so to speak. Certainly those, again, who believe that they are God's chosen people and all of that. That is out there. Endless evidence. I've brought it up on the show numerous times. You're well aware. These are the people that are consistently trying to sow the seeds of division. Now, with all of that aside, you've heard me bring up cumulative risk before. Cumulative risk is a very real societal happening. In many cases, it's just referred to as common sense. That there are certain places that you do not go at certain times of the day. So we're talking about geographic locations, certain times of the day, what those particular locations and or times of the day might bring out, what kinds of people, what those people might be doing, and then, of course, if there were a crisis of some kind or some kind of illegality taking place within said environment, how are said individuals going to react? And then based on their reaction, what else is going to take place that might emphasize that reaction or even extinguish the reaction if it can be extinguished? So here's the thing again. I haven't been to downtown Cincinnati and I can't tell you how long. It's maybe been, over 9 years. I'm not interested in it for a variety of reasons. I don't want to spend money down there. It's a sanctuary city hellhole. I hear it smells like shit. And I'm just, again, I'm not interested in it. There's nothing attractive to me about cities in general. I don't like them. I've been to them plenty of times. It's not a personal thing that I enjoy. Again, it's crowded. I'm not a big crowd person. On top of all of that, when you toss in, again, the very real societal factor of cumulative risk, and you take individuals, whether they be, again, foreigners or whomever, and they happen to be not black, and you throw them into a jazz festival in downtown Cincinnati, again, not that far from the Red Stadium, at nighttime, and a fight breaks out for one reason or another. It doesn't matter if it was name-calling. It doesn't matter what it was. It didn't look like weapons were brandished or anything like that. It could have been name-calling. Who knows? It doesn't matter, though, because either way, you don't walk up to men and women and start punching them in the face and knock them to the ground with the potential of course, killing them. I do want to play this, though. I want to play a little clip from the police chief of Cincinnati. Her name is Teresa Teague, if I'm not mistaken. She has, again, leftist written all over her. She wouldn't be the police chief of Cincinnati if she wasn't. And In typical fashion, she blames social media. She blames the reactions on social media for what went on. She says, hey, look, we had 100 and some odd thousand people in downtown Cincinnati this past weekend. Lots of great things were happening, but people decided to focus in on this one thing, on this one incident. And yeah, murders happen in Cincinnati probably on a weekend basis, if not weekly basis. It's one of the things that occurs. Again, city environments, and it tends to be a certain kind of people. The problem is that it's not just that. That's not just, it's not just necessarily a race-based thing. It is another phenomenon which is, it's brought up, I should say that, but not with the frequency that it should, and it has to do with bystander reaction. And what kinds of individuals are watching a crime take place, and then what kinds of individuals are preventing said crime from becoming worse or just stopping it outright. And this, again, is where you can see mob mentality take over. You can see racial division take over. You can see cultural influence take over, and all of it's bad. That is why these kinds of incidents get the reaction that they do on social media when people film them. It again is because the non-reaction of the adults around, and when I say adults, I mean by age. I clearly don't mean by maturity, but by age. That they encourage the behavior, they film the behavior, they mock the behavior, they laugh at the behavior, again, encourage it any way that they possibly can. Whether that, again, be through laughter or egging other people on or whatever it may be. This is such low IQ behavior that's why you're not seeing anybody react positively, by and large, to the situation. They're not helping the victims in the situation. This has been studied, again, psychologically and sociologically for decades and decades and decades, well over a century, if I had to take a guess. The number of people, again, that do nothing in situations where they should do something, where it's obvious they should do something in the interest of helping innocent individuals from being further victimized or victimized in general, is astounding. It's much like subway behavior. I saw a video the other day of a man dressed up as a woman holding a butcher knife on a subway, and there are people sitting down behind the guy dressed as a woman holding a butcher knife. As the guy with the butcher knife is threatening the people in front of him, there are people sitting behind the person with the knife, and they're not doing anything. One of them stands up and walks away. They clearly see the knife in the right hand of the guy dressed as a woman, and what have you. But again, in a situation like that, that's of course where adrenaline kicks in. You again start to see the pacification of a person's mind and their inability to actually react positively in that particular situation. Some people actually believe that they can talk their way out of it, which is absurd. But it's also where again, the fight or flight response kicks in with certain people. And some people have that fight response, whereas other people do not. One of the reasons that I was an effective educator was because I had the fight response. If there was a conflict, which there rarely ever was around me personally, then I would immediately get involved. But there were other situations, again, where I had to get involved in a situation that didn't personally involve me. In fact, that happened kind of frequently. Not when it came to like physical fights or anything like that, but it was just like, some kind of conflict. Either way, take the subway situation just very quickly. I think it was in New York or Chicago or wherever the hell it was. New York, I think. If there's a man dressed as a woman and they're holding a butcher knife and they're threatening people in front of them and you're behind them, what are you supposed to do? I wouldn't expect women to get involved necessarily, but a man should walk up, grab that dude by the back of the hair, grab the arm where the knife is, and drop them on their head and start stomping on their brains. That's what should happen, to subdue the individual with the weapon. That's what Daniel Penny did in the subway. And he's a flippin' hero. Now, he didn't do it to be a hero. That wasn't the point. He did it to save people's lives because this person was, of course, at the time, who's now dead, thank God, getting in people's faces and threatening to kill them. But he was one of the only ones to intervene while everybody else was just putting up with it. Oh, this is just New York. This is the way that it goes. It isn't any different in Cincinnati. But again, in Cincinnati, where you're outnumbered and the individuals around it are all egging it on, they're all filming it, they're all enjoying it, they're laughing at it, they're doing what they do, then when you're outnumbered in situations like that, it unfortunately shows a people's lack of awareness, their inability to calculate cumulative risk as a math problem and say, you know what, we don't belong there. Music or not, festival or not, baseball game or not, doesn't matter what's happening. Geographic environment or not, sanctuary city or not, we don't belong. We shouldn't go. This is a bad time. This is a bad place. It's a city, hello, and it's run by liberals who, again, invite crime by nature. So again, I just want to play this quick clip from the police chief. I believe, again, her name is Teresa Teague. You can hear it in her voice. You can hear it in her rationalization. She blames the media. Then the media pushes back on her. And then, of course, she doesn't have much of an answer. That comes later. But I'm just going to play 2 minutes of this. There's at least 12 minutes of it on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing if you're interested. But give her a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Another topic I want to cover real quick. Social media and journalism and the role it plays in this incident. And yes, guys, that's you. That is you. Social media, the post that we've seen, does not depict the entire incident. That is one version of what occurred. At times, social media and mainstream media and their commentaries are a misrepresentation of the circumstances surrounding any given event. What that does, that causes us some difficulties in thoroughly investigating the activity and enforcing the law. Because what happens, that social media post and your coverage of it distorts the content of what actually happened. And it makes our job more difficult. Go ahead, right here.
Thank you. 2 questions. Where were the nearest officers?
In the central business section. They were working. They were both in vehicles. And like I said, they had to maneuver through the traffic.
The second question is, you had said social media and news media distorted the content of what actually happened. What exactly was distorted? I understand that there was multiple views of the video, but exactly what led up to this? I mean, what was distorted?
Yeah, so I think by the irresponsibility with social media is it just shows one side of the equation quite frequently without context, without factual context. And then people run with that. And then it grows legs and it becomes something bigger that we then have to try to manage as part of the investigation. So hold on.
And then she doesn't answer the question, and then she deflects and she goes on to a different reporter. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the answer to this. If the shoe were on the other foot and it were whites surrounding a couple of blacks or a black couple, a middle-aged black couple, beating them, engaging in felonious assault and battery to the ground, bashing their head on the concrete, kicking and stomping on their heads, how would the city of Cincinnati or anybody in America respond? You know the answer to that. It's rhetorical. They would be losing their minds. The police chief would be losing her mind. They're all interested, again, in protecting blacks at the expense of everybody, including, of course, the safety of themselves. This is the problem. This will always be a problem. But this is why it gains social media traction. It's not because anybody's lying on social media. It's because they're highlighting the double standard. That's why things gain traction on social media. It's blatantly obvious. Again, getting back to the individuals in Arkansas and now Missouri who, again, are carving out land of their own for white individuals, and then, of course, the individuals in Georgia who are carving out land for their fellow black Americans. This was on Zero Hedge again just on Monday. It was titled, "Whites Only, quote-unquote, town draws anger, while blacks only town gets applause. Again, the double standard is beyond evident on a constant basis when it comes to things like this. It's right in your face all of the time. And I should mention this too because it's truthful and it's worth mentioning. Being able to see the double standard is not race-based. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with IQ, and it has to do with behavior, and societal awareness, and the knowledge of cumulative risk, and media bias, of course, and media control, and social engineering, and psychological operations, and the whole thing. Everybody's well aware of those, at least most people are, but a lot of people are not. They don't even pick up on it. And plenty of people willfully ignore it. Well, that could never happen, they'd say, even if it was brought up to their attention. Well, that's not what's going on. You heard the police chief, again, trying to rationalize the fact that a gang of blacks were beating whites in the middle of the street. Again, if the shoe were on the other foot, she'd be losing her mind. But of course, in this particular case, she's asked about all of it, and then she has to rationalize an explanation as to the fact that, well, according to her, you just don't have the full context of the entire incident. And then when asked about it, she doesn't provide an answer and she just moves on to somebody else. Therein lies the problem. Because again, her reaction to an event that is painfully obvious as to what is going on just redefines what is actually going on. Now, I have to mention this too, and again, it's a societal thing, and this is something, again, where people, of course, are going to call me a racist, and I don't give a damn. The fact is that when it comes to groups like that, groups of, again, typically blacks, certainly in America, in inner cities, again, cumulative risk, this is exactly where you get phrases like, never relax around blacks. The reason that phrase is all over social media on a constant basis, it's not implying high IQ, high knowledge, good citizens, law-abiding people who happen to be of darker skin. It's not referring to those individuals. It's referring to individuals, again, who have no problem with violence in their own environment. That's what it's referring to. That's why, again, I put it in the title, social relaxing, because the term relaxing in a social setting means just that. It means you're walking around without your head on a swivel, not paying attention to your surroundings, thinking that everything is going to be okay. All of the time. I'll never get hurt because I haven't been hurt in the past. Well, tell that to someone who's been hurt in an inner city before. Tell that to someone who's been in an environment where they've been outnumbered. Or, more specifically, been outnumbered either based on their sex or outnumbered based on their race. And then ask them, do you want to go back into that environment? 9.9 out of 10 times, they're going to say, no, I don't want to go back into that environment. Why? Because now, through a hard experience event, they've experienced what happens when you relax in those settings. And you just assume that everybody's going to, again, be a law-abiding citizen. That's not the way that the world works. It isn't. It never has been. But there are naive people on Earth, are there not? Again, the police chief referencing the number of people in downtown Cincinnati over the past weekend is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant the number of activities that may have been taking place. Who cares? That has nothing to do with a geographic area, a cultural phenomenon, which is not a phenomenon, it's a thing that happens all of the time. Just ask people who live in Chicago every weekend. They know all about it. And that's just the way that it is. I understand, too, people would say, well, Sean, you didn't comment on the mass stabbing that happened at a Walmart in Michigan from that white guy. Well, if he was white, and I believe he was, that's terrible, too. That's awful. But then you have to look at the percentage breakdown of crimes that are committed and who makes up the majority or minority of a population in our country. We know what those percentages are. But the people who are covering for those percentages and the people who are trying to rewrite reality right in front of your face and gaslight you into believing that areas and people and groups of people in particular areas at particular times around particular events is somehow not a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, those people are your enemy because they, again, are advocating not just for your destruction, they're advocating for their own destruction, just like the police chief of Cincinnati is. She wants to keep her job until retirement kicks in. Hell, she looks like she could retire right now. She's no spring chicken. But the fact is, again, she's not helping the problem at all. A lack of accountability is the major issue here. That's not representative of our city. Sure it is. It's happened in Cincinnati on endless occasions. From numerous people. White and black. Doesn't matter race. Violent crime does occur. However, it does occur from citizens in that geographic area who tend to be black, because they're the ones that inhabit said environment on a consistent basis. And it's not a new thing. This is not new. Now, 5 people have been arrested. Great. Were they white? Have the names been released? No. Well, they're not white either. That's why. That just adds to the problem. That adds to the social media reaction. That adds to the double standard. I've ranted about this long enough. You already get it. This is, again, part of the issue. I know plenty of individuals who are of numerous races, and the fact is that even they understand going into those environments at that time of day, at night, or whenever is not a good idea. And this is equally as naive when individuals believe that because there are larger crowds, that somehow things are going to be more safe. Well, there's lots of people here, which means the likelihood of somebody getting crazy is less. That's not true either. That's completely ridiculous. Look at downtown Manhattan the other day. Middle of the day, lots of people walking around, not as many as there used to be. Dude walks right into a building with a gun, goes up to a particular floor of, I don't know, one of the BlackRock-owned buildings or something along those lines. I don't know all the details of that case, don't really care. But, he shot somebody. Someone died, shot a cop, I believe. A cop died, wounded a bunch of other people, and then apparently shot himself. Okay. So crowds have nothing to do with it then. That throws that out of the window. People driving automobiles, of course, in our country and in Europe, in massive crowds and crushing a bunch of people. That throws that theory out the window, that larger crowds are somehow safer. Again, it just has to do with societal awareness. And that, of course, encompasses everything that I just mentioned here in the last 23 minutes. So, along with much more. Which actually ties in this. Again, the irony is palpable here. July 24th, President Trump signed an executive order titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. So this happens again before the assaults in Cincinnati. And keep in mind, again, that kind of crime happens every single day all over the place. But the point is that the reason that it was highlighted, again, among other reasons, on social media was because of the constant double standard. That when you show that video and those videos of those assaults, everybody knows what would happen if the shoe were on the other foot. Everybody would be losing their minds. There'd be riots in every city if that were the case. So this particular executive order has to basically do with, and I'm going to summarize it without reading the entire thing, although it's lengthy, that's putting it mildly, but it's very well done. It basically says local judiciaries need to stop giving excuses as to why these violent crimes are occurring. You can't strike it up to drug use, you can't strike it up to mental and emotional problems or psychological damage beyond the obvious or whatever else. That those should not be provisions that the judiciary, again, and judges and lawyers and what have you, use to lower a sentence. It also does this. It ties in individuals, again, who are receiving public housing. That these individuals, again, whether they use drugs or they're using public housing to engage in illegal activity, that these individuals should not get a pass under any circumstance whatsoever. In fact, those individuals should be gone after, and very harshly so. So again, it talks about working with urban development and housing and urban development and the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General's office and the whole thing. Again, I have to mention this again too. Sorry to go back to the Cincinnati thing just very quickly, but ask yourself this question also, which of course is not one that anybody on social media is going to bring up, and certainly not, well, I'm sure people did on social media, but certainly not the police chief. Who filmed it? That's always the question, isn't it? Should be the question. Who did the filming? Was the person white who was holding the cell phone? Or was the person with the black individuals who was filming the assault? And they looked at one another and they coordinated it and they said, we're going to assault these people. Maybe they name called, maybe they didn't. I don't know what started it. Frankly, I don't care. But what you're going to do is you're going to film it. We're going to go stomp on their head. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And then they engage in it. Who uploaded the video onto the internet? Police can figure that out. Because therein lies the problem. Was it a white person? Probably not. Again, it's mob mentality. It's a culture. It's a culture of attention getting. It's a culture of a number of different things. Some people record illegality because they're interested in catching a crime and the perpetrators of said crime. Some people record illegality in an effort to gain fame, popularity, or because they just flat out enjoy it. Again, let me shift gears here slightly and point to another double standard, which again we are all well aware of, which of course happens to do with illegal aliens. And illegal aliens killing individuals, either again with or without their knowledge. Again, whether it's an accident, so to speak, or they willfully murder someone. But this is, again, a very tragic story that fortunately has gotten a little bit of attention here. This is from the New York Post. It was titled, Heartbreaking Video Shows Family's Tearful Goodbye to Teen Whose Organs Were Donated After Alleged Drunk Illegal Immigrant Plowed Into Him. The illegal alien is a female, a Honduran national by the name of Noela Saray Martinez Avalia, I don't know, who cares, 30 years old, and again was apparently drunk, and drove her SUV the wrong way on a Madison highway and struck and killed Brady Helling, 19, and Haley Helgson, 18. Again, the two of them were dating, and there you have it. I'm not saying, again, that blacks aren't killed by illegal aliens. They most certainly are, and other races are as well. Asians, even illegal aliens, have killed Hispanics as well, too. But this business, again, of the double standard in the media and them, again, not highlighting these cases has even been brought up by, of course, politicians. They've openly said, isn't it interesting that you'll never get a Democrat to ever bring up an angel family or an angel mom or all these other buzzwords that they use for individuals who are, again, killed or the family members who are left behind because their family member has been killed by an illegal alien. They never advocate for those families and those victims. They just they advocate rather for the victimizer on a constant basis. Bring back the victimizer. Don't deport the victimizer. I think that the penalties for illegal aliens engaging in illegal acts beyond being here illegally in our country should be swift. Me personally, and I'm going to take a hard stance on this, I'm sure I'm not the only one, they should be executed. That's my personal belief. They shouldn't be deported, they should be detained, and then they should be executed. You are here illegally, you're doing illegal things. There's no way an illegal Honduran gets a driver's license legally. They're driving illegally. It has to be a stolen vehicle because clearly it's not theirs. There's another law that's being broken. Execute them. Don't detain them and then try them and then put them in our jail for XYZ so that taxpayers have to pay for it. And then deport them afterwards for them to potentially only come back here illegally and potentially do the same thing again, either here or do it in their home country and actually kill someone in their home country. Just execute them. Get rid of them. The laws in this country have to change, but that can only unfortunately happen if the people who are responsible for creating the laws, if all of that changes. It has to become federal nationwide law. I again understand that there are state constitutions and states have their own rights. I mean, I get it. But you're talking about a federal crime, illegal aliens being here illegally and engaging in illegal acts. That's a federal crime on numerous levels. But we have to get rid of these people, period. I support ICE 100%. Every single moron who is running up to ICE agents on the streets and screaming and yelling at them. Again, I saw some liberal woman at a Home Depot screaming and yelling at ICE agents as they're detaining an illegal alien. That woman has no idea what that guy has done that is illegal beyond being here illegally. She has no clue. It's people like that, again, who advocate for their own destruction without even knowing it. These videos are all over the place. A person has to live under a rock to not be able to see what's going on here. Now let me move on to this. Just a few Russiagate things. This is kind of nice. Again, mainstream media, again, is trying to deflect from much of it, as we well know, because, of course, they are responsible for all of the Russiagate lies and a number of other things. Let me start with this. This is an old post from WikiLeaks from back in the day describing the Pied Piper strategy, certainly when it comes to the Clinton campaign and any of their opponents. And it said this, again, and this was put out by the Clinton campaign specifically, again, before 2016. So this is a 2015 strategy, but if you think about it again, it even predates that because this is just their strategy. It's also from the Saul Alinsky playbook, in other words, but this is generally it. It says the following here, quote, "Our goals and strategy." It says, "Our hope is that the goal of a potential HRC campaign, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and the DNC would be one and the same. To, quote, to make whomever the Republicans nominate unpalatable to a majority of the electorate. We have outlined 3 strategies to obtain our goal. Number 1, force all Republican candidates to lock themselves into extreme conservative positions that will hurt them in the general election. Number 2, undermine any credibility trust Republican presidential candidates have to make inroads in our coalition or independence. And 3, muddy the waters on any potential attack lodged against HRC. The simple fact that they sit around and scheme about lying and deceiving people should be enough for people to understand that these people are evil. I'm not saying that people on the right don't do it either, but what's interesting about people who are honest is that honest individuals don't have to scheme like this. Honest individuals can just tell the truth about the behavior of people, have the evidence to back it up, bring it to the people to show them. Here's exactly who you're voting for. This is the kind of person. These are the behaviors. These are the this, that, and the other, and all of it. And then, of course, let the chips fall where they may, because we live in a constitutional republic, and it's supposed to be up to us, the people. But we know, of course, in the past, these individuals have been selected, they've been groomed, even Donald Trump. He was selected, but he's been political his entire life, whether people were paying attention to it or not. Again, there are endless videos on YouTube. I went back and watched one just the other night of Donald Trump over the course of decades and decades and decades being asked questions from individuals about a number of different political issues. And even back then, people were attacking him for what he was saying. And what he was saying makes perfect sense. And he's doing it today. And it still makes sense today. Again, he's cutting all kinds of deals across the nation. He's keeping us from being bankrupted. He's more so than we already are. He's bringing more money back to us. These are not bad things. These are good things. And the simple fact that no one in the past has ever done this before should be a real red pill for a lot of people that something else is going on, that there is an operation here in place. Now, again, getting back to this Pied Piper strategy, this is, again, from WikiLeaks. It's the same document. It goes on. It says operationalizing, there we go, the strategy. It says Pied Piper candidates. It says, quote, there are 2 ways to approach the strategies mentioned above. The first is to use the field as a whole to inflict damage on itself, similar to what happened to Mitt Romney in 2012. The variety of candidates is a positive here, and many of the lesser known can serve as a cudgel to move the more established candidates further to the right. In this scenario, we don't want to marginalize the more extreme candidates, but make them more Pied Piper, quote unquote, candidates who actually represent the mainstream of the Republican Party. Pied Piper candidates include, but are limited to, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, Ben Carson. And then it says, we need to be elevating the Pied Piper candidates so that they are leaders of the pack and tell the press to them seriously. So they went after Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, and Ben Carson, and they attacked them the most because they actually believed back then in 2015, and they were wrong, same thing in 2016, that if they chose those three guys and thrust them into the limelight, that would immediately cause them to be the ones to leave the presidential race first. And then, of course, that bolsters up the establishment, like the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the Mitt Romneys of the world, and all those other idiots like Jeb Bush who are running for office and 1,000 other things. Again, it just takes all of those people and it just places them in their typical positions where, again, individuals think, well, I've got to pick somebody, so I might as well pick one of these weirdos. And the fact is none of that worked. None of it worked. Honesty came to the forefront. Talking about America being great again came to the forefront. And that's what not only people wanted to hear, but that's what we wanted to see. That's what we wanted to experience. And that's what we've gotten. And at the exact same time, I fully understand there's terrible things happening. I know about the surveillance state. You've heard me bring that up. Wireless body area network, wearable medical devices, all of it. It's all bad. Again, the continued use of AI for certain particular reasons. And I mean, the list goes on and on. Corruption won't exist until Jesus comes back and wipes out all of the corrupt people. Until that day happens, we're always going to have these problems. But if you can't feel the shift in society right now, again, a person must live under a rock. I mean, we are back to an extent. But this ebb and flow of how things have operated in the past. We win, we lose, we win, we lose, back and forth, back and forth. That has to stop. We just have to keep winning. And we have to highlight the absurdity of absurd situations and absurd people when we see it. We have the loudest voices, by the way, to sort of sum all of this up to some extent, but I have more to read regarding the whole Russia hoax, and we know where all of that started, but we own social media. We're the ones that typically have it. Yeah, there's some compromised individuals on the right, no doubt about it. And these individuals, again, believe that they have a lot of influence, and even they are losing it on a constant basis. Those in Con Inc. and all of that crowd, and, the Charlie Kirks of the world and everybody else. These are all coattail grabbers who don't have original thoughts of their own. And again, try to shut down what most of us out here in real society have a pretty good idea as to what's going on. We try to look at as many angles as humanly possible, and that's just kind of how we operate. But you can immediately tell when somebody doesn't know or doesn't want to know because, again, they will shut people down, or they will not listen to other ideas, or they will not, again, have basically a coherent, polite dialogue back and forth. It's just, well, thanks for participating, you're an anti-Semite, now get out of here. And then they name call, and then they distract and they leave. Again, this is what even Fox News does on a constant basis. I mean, for God's sakes, the other day on that noon show, Outnumbered, they had Mark Levin on. Every other sentence out of his mouth was, they're a Jew-hating anti-Semite. It's like, okay, we get it. You're doubling down on all of that nonsense. That's all you have is name-calling. And of course, you can tell that both he and Fox News are completely owned by the Jewish lobby because what do? They highlight one individual, believing that if they attack that individual, then that individual is somehow, again, going to lose. They could be wrong on that. They're using the Pied Piper strategy also, those on the right. Specifically, in their little discussion having to do with the Democrat nominee, the sole Democrat nominee for the mayor of New York, this Zohran Mamdani. Again, this guy's a full-blown communist and everybody knows it. But they're not bringing up anybody else who is in the race. Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, again, is running again. He's lost in the past. He lost to Eric Adams. But he's running again. Again, this individual's been around a long time in New York. He's kind of a staple in New York. But again, Fox News never brings him up. You have Andrew Cuomo running as an independent because he lost in the primary as a Democrat. There's a Jim Walden as an independent, again. Federal prosecutor, first-time candidate, emphasizes anti-corruption measures and has criticized congestion pricing and vaccine mandates. Seems like they would do well to, talk about him a little bit. Because that sounds like a good thing. I don't know anything about his background, but therein lies the problem. They would make you believe that this Zoran guy is the only one running for the position and that somehow he's running unopposed. That's not true. Fox News wants this Zoran guy to win because it'll give them something to talk about in the very shithole that they all live and work in. That's how deranged these people are. They should be talking about the good people running in this particular race. I mean, even Eric Adams is running again as an independent, and he was charged with what? Corruption, federal corruption charges. Yeah, they were dismissed, but why? So again, just to round that out regarding the Pied Piper strategy, it's something that consistently happens. It's something that both sides engage in. And it's certainly, of course, something that the media is directly involved in. In many cases, that's their strategy, and they use it time and time again, even when it doesn't work. It didn't work in Donald Trump's case. He blew that whole thing right to pieces. But that's because the American people had the choice. But New York, again, is an absolute hellhole. I can't believe people go there. I can't believe it. But people, again, are leaving. And that right there should tell people how bad it is. That means you have to vote for someone else. Okay, more Russiagate stuff here. This is from Twitchy.com. It was titled Knew It. Newly declassified docs show Virginia Senator Mark Warner has a whole lot of Russiagate splaining to do. This was from Paul Sperry a few days back. It says Senate Intel ranking member Democrat Mark Warner turned away an Intel analyst who worked on the ICA and approached his office numerous times, quote unquote, to blow whistle on CIA Director Brennan, juicing bad intel on Russia and Trump, but Warner refused to even give him email address to send evidence. This was Mays over on X saying the same thing. Warner played a central role in this treasonous scam, needs investigating urgently. One tweet after another of individuals again directly implying and showing that Mark Warner was involved. Of course he was involved. Every congressman and woman in the House of Representatives or in the Senate knew what was happening. Many of them knew what was going on. Look at the ones again who voted to solidify Donald Trump's nomination in 2016 and those who did not. Those who voted again to solidify Joe Biden's so-called fake presidential election win and those who did not. By voting a particular way, they're showing their allegiance to one side or the other. And then, of course, they have the specific oath and right and responsibility to look at all of the evidence. When it came to voter fraud, they didn't do that either. This is why Adam Schiff is even involved. He's involved because he was told, go after the Ukraine conversation and Donald Trump's involvement with Zelensky over the phone regarding Ukraine. We'll fabricate that entire lie. We'll hitch it to Russia, although it's not directly connected, but again, it's basically a subchapter of the entire Russia lie, trying to basically show again some fake Russia collusion thing taking place. And then that led, of course, to the first impeachment. That was a lie too, which means every single Democrat affiliated with that has to hang for treason. We're going to need a lot of rope, ladies and gentlemen, and these people are going to have to be arrested. They don't have immunity from this. They can lawyer up all they want, but all they have to do is show a couple of emails and a couple of communiques, as I've said before, between these individuals, and then before you know it, They've got him. Military tribunal shows up and they push forward an email and it says, yep, we know that he probably won, but we don't care. We're just going to keep running through with this story no matter what. That document is all they need with these people's names on it, and they're finished. Now let me get into this. This has to do again with the Durham report. And this was from Just Human at Real Just Human on X. And they have a thread regarding this. And again, all of the names affiliated with this and who was brought up in the Durham report. And we know who. Also, funny little thing, it was either the Durham report or another report where they specifically, I believe it was, my apologies, it was the Mueller report. In the Mueller report, the people putting that together, they purposefully misspelled James Comey's name, and they spelled his name corny, because they didn't want individuals, again, to do a search of that PDF document and find James Comey's name specifically. They wanted, again, to make it harder for the media to find his name or anybody else to find his name. What, of course, we were told in the Q drops at the time when that was going on was that they, of course, specifically did that, and then there were references to corn and corny in Q drops, also implying, again, that those specific drops had to do with James Comey. Again, it was quite a time to be alive back in the day, but that was one of the word games that was being played because, again, the concept of keywords within documents matters when you're trying to look for someone's name. All you have to do is misspell it once and then misspell it every time after that, and it becomes a little bit more difficult to find. So here is Just Human's thread, and it says again the following, quote, from the Durham report beginning on page 81. Investigative referral of possible Clinton campaign plan. Late July 2016, U.S. Intel obtains insight, quote-unquote, into Russia intel analyst and alleges a Clinton plan to frame Trump for collusion with Russia. CIA Director Brennan briefs President Obama. It says, note, Crossfire Hurricane begins just days later, on July 30th of 2016. An investigative referral is made by the CIA a month later on September 7th, 2016, and forwarded to James Comey and Peter Strzok. And they have a picture of that with the highlighted sections. It goes on. It says Special Counsel Durham, referred to as the office in this report, considered the Clinton plan, intelligence relevant for two reasons. Number one, it arguably suggested that private actors affiliated with the Clinton campaign were seeking in 2016 to promote a false or exaggerated narrative to the public and to U.S. government agencies. It says the Clinton plan intelligence prompted the office to consider, quote unquote. It says, was there a plan? It says, if there was, did it involve intentionally providing knowingly false and or misleading information to the FBI or other agencies in furtherance of such a plan? They wrote, cough, conspiracy, cough, RICO, cough. Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. It goes on, it says the Clinton plan was interested Durham because, quote, it was part of the mosaic of information that became known to certain U.S. officials or before the time they made critical decisions regarding Crossfire Hurricane and in related LE and Intel efforts. And they described the mosaic theory, which was something that was written about, which again has to do with connecting particular stories together to paint a particular picture, to look a particular way, so that it's more easily digestible for people who aren't thinking. It goes on. It says, quote, put another way, this intelligence takes at face value was arguably highly relevant and exculpatory because it could be read in further context and in combination with other facts to suggest that the materials, such as the Steele dossier reports and Alpha Bank allegations, were part of the political effort to smear Trump and use the resources of the federal government's law enforcement and intelligence agencies in support of a political objective, unquote. All of that again in the Durham report. It says conditions for bringing charges, quote, if there was an intel by the Clinton campaign or its personnel to knowingly provide false information to the government, would such conduct potentially support criminal charges? It goes on, it says it was unknown at the time how accurate the Clinton plan intel was. Durham, quote, endeavored to investigate the basis for and credibility of this intelligence, unquote. And it says, quote, the classified appendix to this report provides further information about the details of the Clinton plan intelligence. That's number one. Number two, facts that heightened the potential, the potential relevance of the office. And three, the office's effort to verify or refute the key claims found in the intelligence. Then it goes on, it says, quote, as described more fully in the classified appendix, there were specific indications and additional facts that heightened the potential relevance of this intelligence to Durham. Also, spot the statement that, quote, U.S. officials described the Clinton plan intelligence in variations, there's lots of typos here, in their official notes and documents. It says the CIA official who received the Clinton plan intelligence immediately recognized its importance and acted quickly to make CIA leadership aware of it. Durham got Brennan's office holdings. Now Ratcliffe, Gabbard, Patel, and Bondi have them. It says in July 28th of 2016, CIA Director Brennan meets with President Obama and other White House personnel regarding intelligence relevant to the 2016 presidential election and, quote, creation of an interagency fusion cell to synthesize and analyze intelligence, unquote, related to the 2016 election influenced by Russia. Brennan meets with FBI Director Comey the next day. Brennan, who was interviewed by Durham for approximately 8 hours in August of 2020, couldn't remember when he saw the Clinton plan intel, but, quote, he did not think he had the information when he spoke to Comey on July 29th of 2016. He's lying. Quote, immediately after confirming with Obama, Comey and Clapper, quote, Brennan and other agency officials, unquote, take steps to control silo and Russian election interference intelligence, including the Clinton plan intelligence. It says, quote, email traffic and witness interviews conducted by Durham reflect that at least some CIA personnel believe that the Clinton plan intelligence led to the decision being made to set up a fusion cell. It says instead of properly investigating, verifying, or falsifying it, they soiled it into the fusion cell. The complete opposite of what was done with the Steele dossier, which some of these same people knew was Clinton Oppo research. With the Clinton plan intel now highly classified, unverified, and safely siloed, there we go, in the fusion cell, one and the same, of select staffing from various agencies, Brennan meets with other officials in the White House on August 3rd of 2016 and briefs them on it, as if it's true, when it wasn't. Crossfire Hurricane, the vehicle for the Clinton plan, is already underway. FBI learns of the Clinton plan sometime before August 22nd of 2016. A cyber analyst at the FBI sent an email regarding the Clinton plan on that date to SIA Auten and Section Chief Mofa, and also to the Crossfire team. Apparently no one responded or took action on it. It says 10 days later, the guy running the fusion cell verbally briefs Auten, Mofa, and other FBI persons at headquarters regarding the Clinton plan intel. Crossfire Hurricane folks were apparently not included in the discussion. This chat occurred because the CIA was about to send an official investigative referral based on the Clinton plan intelligence. This was the heads-up FISA from the fusion cell to FBI headquarters. This is, again, where they were spying on him. It says on the same day or shortly, spying on Trump, that is. On the same day, it says, or shortly prior to it, FBI Assistant Director for Counter Intel Bill Priestap pens notes to the Clinton plan intel. He's just been briefed by Mofa, Corsi, and Spohr. I'm getting those names right. Durham wanted to know more about this meeting, but old Bill refused to meet with him. Perhaps Cash Bongino and Bondi can get Bill to have a chit-chat with them. The CIA sends the investigative referral to the FBI 5 days later on September 7th of 2016, and they address it to Comey and Strzok. And then it goes on, it says, no one who met with Durham could recall receiving this referral. And no one could remember doing a damn thing about it. As September came to a close, Comey, Clapper, and other high-ranking national security officials received another intelligence product on Russian interference in the 2016 election, which included the Clinton plan intelligence. Apparently, it was ignored, neglected as well. And then he wraps up and he says, perhaps soon, we'll see that document and the classified annex of the Durham report and other key documents as, of course, Ratliff, Gabbard, Cash, Bongino, Bondi, Trump will continue to declass, make disclosures, investigate where it's properly predicted and necessary, quote unquote, as they make America and the agency, bureaus, and departments who protect her great again. And that's the end of their thread. Again, this was not only in the Durham report, this was in numerous reports, and there, of course, the documents that Tulsi Gabbard openly declassified, where it clearly says we were ignoring that this was fake, that these agencies were ignoring that it was fake, that they weren't going to bring the story that it was fake to the president because the president was in on it being fake, just like those individuals bringing it to the president were in on it being fake because the whole thing was fake. I don't know how else to summarize it, but yeah, you can't falsify a story about a president or an individual running for president in an attempt to overthrow an election before the election takes place, and then put the pedal to the metal in fifth gear and do the same thing again after said individual wins said election. That's treason, sedition, and conspiracy to do so. Here's one final geopolitical thing I want to bring up before I move on to education. This is from Rod D. Martin, at Rod D. Martin, on X, and this has to do with Trump's new weapon to slash spending without Congress. This has to do with what is called a pocket rescission. It says the following here: Trump's new weapon to slash spending without Congress. He may have found the ultimate budget kill switch, the pocket rescission. It's legal, it's powerful, and it could gut billions in deep state pork without a single vote in Congress. Let's break it down. What is a pocket rescission? It's a rarely used but fully legal tool that lets the president kill funding without Congress lifting a finger. Submit a request within 45 days of the fiscal year's end, and if Congress stalls, the money expires. It says Congress sets aside funding. The president sends a rescission request under the Impoundment Control Act, and if it's within 45 days of September 30th, and Congress does nothing, the funds vanish, gone forever. It says Office of Monetary Budget Director Russ Vaught, I think I'm getting that right. It says, quote, he said the following, it's very possible we might use pocket rescissions. It's one of our executive tools. It's been used before, and it's fully legal, unquote. This is how you defund the swamp without getting bogged down by rhinos or Senate Dems. Then he says, why now? It says Trump already passed a $9 billion rescission package on July 24th, but there's way more to cut. Congressional gridlock, ? Blue state hostage taking, ? Trump's saying, fine, they'll go around you. Pocket rescissions are a key, fully legal answer to out-of-control spending. No need to beg Congress, no omnibus hostage taking, no more funding your enemies. Trump pulls the trigger, Congress stalls, and the money dies. And he has a truth post here from Donald Trump where he says, balanced budget now, ? Let's give it a shot. Lots of money coming in from tariffs. Do it, DJT. Rod Martin goes on and says, why do the left and Uniparty hate this, rather? He says, because it strips them of their favorite weapons, slush funds, earmarks, backroom deals. And it lets Trump swing the axe alone. He can't spend more, but he can spend less. Trump is done asking permission. He's using the Constitution, the law, and the tools of the presidency to drain the swamp, whether Congress cooperates or not. That's how a CEO runs a country, unquote. And as it says in Q drops, this has to be done by the book. And this can be done by the book. And it's being done by the book, which is good. Again, the simple deal that was struck regarding the European Union and tariffs, and again, budgetary access and a number of other things, and trade, of course, I think is a fantastic move. Also, a lot of people, of course, are saying that it is, and one of the major reasons why is because Europe was cutting off Americans' ability to sell in Europe, and that's not going to happen anymore. Plainly speaking, if a European wants to drive a Ford Mustang, they're going to have access to a Ford Mustang. If they want to drive a Chevy Silverado, they can do that too. And smaller companies in America can do the exact same thing, and of course farmers in America can sell to European countries also. Where in the past, that's not happened, because starving Europe and bankrupting Europe has always been their goal. And money talks, and it talks with all of these people. Again, everybody knows that the people will rise up, which is what I would have liked to have seen. The people rise up and kill their politicians in Europe, and certainly members of the European Union. And of course, when things get so desperate, that's exactly what would happen in times like that. But this is another way to, of course, reduce bloodshed and hopefully, again, expose these politicians for being as corrupt as they are. And Donald Trump is leaning on them when it comes to the illegal invasions that have been taking place from African countries and Middle Eastern countries into Europe, because he fully knows that that's not Europe. Nationalism, again, has to take over here, and nationalism is on the rise, which is a good thing. And we have to keep the pedal to the metal on nationalism, because it means, again, a love of God and a love of country. That's the definition. Don't look it up on Google, because they'll tell you some racist definition. But nationalism is increasing, and that's always worth applauding. But again, it's not one of these things that you give up. Once you realize that the people around you and your governments want you dead, and certainly the bad people in them by and large, that's when you have to galvanize, and that's when you have to, again, coalesce around one another and do the right thing. And then spread that message on to younger generations so that they too can do the right thing. Because there's young generations of individuals, again, who are equally as brainwashed as their elders when it comes to them actually believing that nationalism is a bad thing. And that everybody needs to, again, go to a country and just see multicultural everything all the time in every country. That defeats the purpose of borders. So, again, I think the bad guys are on the run to a great extent. It doesn't mean they're going to quit. They're certainly not going to do that. They'll dig in like ticks. But we have to continue to just expose these people and then laugh in their faces and then get more people to do the same. Okay. Speaking of laughing in people's faces, I gotta do this real quick first. Regarding the so-called education system and that ridiculous, stupid, corrupt environment, there is a group called Guardian, let me get this straight here, Campus Guardian Angel. That's it. You're going to hear from their CEO and founder, a Justin Marston. Sounds like an Australian fellow. And I'll summarize it very quickly. This is peak stupidity. It's basically a series of remote-controlled drones that would enter a building, find a shooter, and then shoot non-lethal rounds at the so-called shooter, of course, after they're already inside of a building killing people. And then those drones are remote-controlled by somebody in a separate office in a distant city, in this particular case, Austin, Texas. And then the drones again go around the school, find the person, attack the person, and then the situation is so-called neutralized. I can't tell you how dumb this is. I don't even have the words to describe how stupid this is. If anybody thinks this makes sense or is a good idea, grab yourself by the back of the shirt, find a cliff, and throw yourself off of it. This is dumb. This, of course, is not preventative by any stretch of the imagination. This is more of a not only surveillance state, but it is more of a normalizing this kind of behavior. Drone usage around adults and minors, and that drones will be used, of course, to shoot either real or non-real rounds, and then allegedly neutralize some situation that's already been going on for X amount of time. It's just dumb. And I understand why they think that it's a good thing. Again, it's beginning of the school year. The timing is everything. They're doing this again because they believe that they need to scare everybody again. And this is when all of this nonsense again shows up in the news cycle, and then they get everybody panicked, and then they get people advocating for this kind of thing, and so on and so on. It's stupid human behavior squared, or cubed, or multiplied endless number of times on an infinity cycle. I just can't believe that anybody would buy into this, but there was a clip going around on Disclosed TV and on TikTok and a number of other places. I've put it on my socials as well. It was sent to me also by a listener of the show. Thank you for sending it. But give this a listen again. This aired on NBC News also, but give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
This is the future of school safety.
Our job is if somebody comes in a school with a gun, we respond in 5 seconds.
This is how it would work. Silent alarms in the school alert the company, then drones strategically placed on campus get deployed, and these drone pilots would navigate remotely from their headquarters in Austin, working in tandem with the school and police, inflicting non-lethal damage to the suspect, or dummy in this demo, with pepper rounds and direct impact.
All these markings, that's from the drone?
Yeah, so the little holes are from drones, and then these different marks here, these are from the pepper rounds bouncing off the guy's chest.
All of it in effort to buy time.
We want to make sure that person is as graded as we can in a non-lethal manner so that they're unable to continue murdering children.
The program is not active in any schools yet, but the company says it expects to start training programs in 4 Texas schools this year. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis just approved state funding to bring it to 3 of their school districts.
Do you want these drones in your school?
Absolutely.
John Lux, father and principal of this charter school in Miami, hopes to have the peace of mind.
As a father, you ask me, what am I willing to give up in my child's school for protection? Everything.
The fear is in the data. Since the Columbine High School shooting in 1999, nearly 400,000 students across the U.S. have experienced school gun violence of some kind. Former FBI agent Rob D'Amico says this drone program is promising for school shooting response, but the root of the crisis remains.
It's still not at the point where you're, quote, stopping school shootings. Stopping school shootings is preventing the gun to get into the school, which is proven problematic.
Until then, the members of this unlikely team of drone pilots plucked from around the country say they're ready.
When he told me, hey, we got this opportunity in Texas, it sounds crazy, but it may work, I said, I'm in.
Ready for a day they hope never comes.
I'd be happy to put this system in every school in America and never use it.
A radical response for unthinkable reality in today's America. Marissa Parra, NBC News, Miami.
Now, are you ready for a laugh? Because here it comes. At least I think so. A number of things. First of all, the guys operating the drone were operating it on site. They were right there. So there's no proof. Not yet anyway, certainly not in that bullshit demonstration on NBC News, that you can be in one location and have the drones operating in a completely different state. No proof that you can do that from that distance. I'm not saying you couldn't, the military certainly can, but therein lies the first problem. That drone demonstration was taking place in that Miami, Florida charter school, or Texas charter school, or wherever the hell that was. It was literally on the same campus. The guys with the remote controls and then the container that holds these drones. That's the second funny part. The container that holds the drones, all you need to do to keep the container closed is a piece of duct tape. You just need duct tape on top of it, one little piece, no bigger than your hand, and that container won't open. This is their prevention strategy. And then you had that principal who goes, as a father and a principal, what would I give up to, protect my kids? I'd give up everything. Of course you would. You'd give up everything. You'd give up the ability to live a private life. You would give up the ability for students to not be surveilled. You would give up all of it, all of your individual freedoms and rights to have a robot flying around their head in the interest of allegedly preventing somebody else from getting killed while a shooting is already taking place. Thank God the one guy said, this doesn't keep guns out of the person's hands because the gun's already made its way inside of the building. This is like people, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same concept as back during the entire concussion discussion, with football players and all of that bullshit, that if we change the helmet, then that will prevent a concussion. So much so that you have super dummies, okay? I mean, complete morons during football practices wear a pillow around what looks like this giant, stupid cartoon helmet on top of their already existing football helmet, and that they believe that somehow that's going to prevent a concussion. No, that's not how it works physiologically. A concussion is your brain inside of your skull hitting up against your skull. That's what a concussion is. A concussion is not a contusion on the outside of your head. The problem is backwards, and it's inverted and upside down. It's just not, it's inside out, rather. Again, these people are so dumb, it hurts my whole body. It physically hurts. But thank God they played that last piece of audio, because the last piece right there at the end was the real reason why all of it is taking place. That company created that device, and he openly said, as one of the heads of the company or developers, I would be 100% fine with this system existing in every single school and never having to use it. Well, of course you would. You'd be rolling in money like Scrooge McDuck. You'd have more money than you would know what to do with, because you would get everybody to buy into your con job. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the education business in a nutshell. It's a con job. It's designed to get everybody to buy into something that they never needed to buy into, because the thing and the basis for which it was built around is fraudulent, like Columbine, or Parkland, or Uvalde, or pick one, Sandy Hook, Nashville. If we only had these drones, those fake school shootings wouldn't have happened in the first place. The entire business is fraudulent, and it draws fraudulent individuals out like this all of the time to get on mainstream media and feed these lies to the American people, and only the gullible will buy into it. Not to mention the price tag. I didn't hear a price tag number on any of that. I bet it's not cheap. I bet tax dollars are going to it also. And then, of course, there was this aspect. Schools in, 7 schools in Texas and a couple of schools in Florida are adopting this for X amount of time so that they can run stupid drills. Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be your next false flag. Your next fake school shooting is going to happen there, and what are they going to say? They're going to say that those drones helped in the situation. Just like individuals would say that those wearables that teachers wear around their necks, where everybody knows where everybody is all of the time, is somehow a preventative measure. It's horseshit. And if anybody buys into it, they're complete morons. There's no way around it. These people need to be mocked and made fun of. This is the worst of what this, again, fraudulent society has to offer. And it's a psychological operation. For very horrible, horrible reasons. They're perpetuating lies, of course, and then they're trying to profit off of it. It's disgusting. Okay. Moving on here. Operation Greyskull. Don't know if you heard about this one too. This is, again, good news. Going after child predators and rescuing children. Always a good thing. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Trump's Justice Department takes down dark web child abuse network. 120,000 users, millions of files in Operation Greyskull. My question is, how many school employees among those 120,000 some odd users are involved in this? I bet it's a lot. It says, quote, in one of the most aggressive and successful anti-child exploitation crackdowns in U.S. history, President Trump's Justice Department has revealed the result of Operation Greyskull, a sweeping international strike that dismantled 4 high-traffic dark web platforms trafficking violent child sexual abuse materials, exploiting a digital cesspool that includes over 120,000 registered users and millions of illicit files. To date, 18 individuals have been convicted in federal court, receiving a combined 300 plus years in prison. Justice Department detailed how Thomas Peter Kasampis, 52 of Minnesota, if I'm saying that right, became a staff member on one of these despicable sites, personally distributing CSAM, guiding others on how to use it to do so, and helping manage operations. He was sentenced to over 20 years in prison, lifetime supervision, and forced to pay restitution to his victims. But he was only one of many. Among the 18 convicted predators were a William Michael Spearman of Alabama, who was sentenced to life in prison for his role in a child exploitation enterprise. A Joseph Addison Martin of Washington got 42 years in prison. Keith David McIntosh of Michigan was sentenced to a staggering 55 years with a prior conviction on record, and a Selwyn David Rosenstein, every single time, of Florida was handed 28 years for a six-figure restitution order for his crimes. Each of these individuals was found guilty of actively operating or contributing to some of the darkest, most vile content imaginable, and doing so in a highly coordinated and secretive online network. Oh, there's school officials involved. There have to be. They're always wrapped up in that kind of gross stuff. All of the time. And of course, wrapping up here on education, speaking of engaging in gross stuff, Florida County School Board Chair deletes Facebook comments celebrating Hulk Hogan death, saying at least there's one less MAGA in the world. Quote unquote. They said, "Oh, did Hulk die? ? I didn't even know. Good, one less MAGA in the world." This is let's see, what's her name? Sarah Rockwell, school board chair for Alachua County in Florida. Alachua. There we go, Alachua, if I'm saying that right. County in Florida publicly celebrated the death of famed wrestler Hulk Hogan due to his past support for President Trump. And then, of course, she apologized to the families and staff members of the county. "I want to assure all of you the best interests of our children in public schools are at the center of everything that I do as a board member. You're a liar." She goes on and said, "I hope that I have shown that by my record of advocacy for children, families, and staff members throughout Alachua County. Again, I apologize for the hurt and distrust I have caused with my insensitive comment. I will continue to do the hard work of putting your children in schools first, blah, blah, blah. I hope that I can earn back your trust." You can't. You just blew it. That's it. It's that simple. You're done. She won't be a board member ever again. More pressure. She'll be attacked in board meetings, rightfully so. She'll get pressured out, and then she won't come back. Again, a person can be a bridge builder all they want, ladies and gentlemen, and all you have to do is one heinous thing. You're not a bridge builder anymore. You're responsible and known for that heinous thing. That's the way that works. Okay, on to jab-related and COVID stuff. I'm just going to riff here for a minute off the top of my head regarding a few things that I've seen and heard here over the recent days. First of all, I saw a clip on Rich Eisen's show on YouTube having to do with Deion Sanders, the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes out there at the University of Colorado. He had his bladder removed as a result of a cancer diagnosis. Deion Sanders has been operated on at least 14 times. He's had blood clots removed, toes removed, his vascular system rewired, and his legs. And now, of course, he's had his bladder removed and a replacement bladder placed into where his old bladder was. And is claiming, of course, he's cancer-free. And hallelujah, praise Jesus, let's all join together and hold hands as family, and so on and so on. All of these conversations, ladies and gentlemen, are taking place with regularity without anybody ever mentioning the cause of all of his ailments. It doesn't matter the outlet. No one's bringing it up. None of the hosts of these shows are bringing it up. What's the one thing, Deion, that you did before all of this started to happen to you? Well, he took the COVID shots. He had to have. He's falling apart like a person who took the COVID shots. Again, some people are dying quickly and instantly. Some people, again, are suffering long-term damage with numerous symptoms, and some people, again, are physically falling apart piece by piece from the inside out, and they don't know why. And they don't know the thing, again, that caused it. Or, I should say this, they do know the thing that caused it, they're just refusing to mention it. And again, which one's worse? Willfully lying to people and keeping information from people? Because even Dion said himself in a press conference, he's talking about being honest regarding his symptoms, regarding his illness and his recovery, and how his body's not the same and it's not going to be the same and everything else. And, we got to be honest and we can't run away from this. You got to get checked out and, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, that becomes the narrative. It's not the thing that caused the problem. That should be the real story in the mainstream all the time, which means, again, you talk about conspiracy to commit fraud. The media is involved in this bioweapon genocide. They've been involved in it from the start. And per usual, as you would expect, if you get in the comments section of these videos on YouTube, whether it be, again, Rich Eisen talking about Deion Sanders or whomever, you're not going to find anybody talking about the COVID shots. You're not even going to see a needle emoji. Again, good for the prayers. That's all nice and dandy. Cares about people. He's helping people. Okay, fine. Good, I guess. That, again, that's fine. Oh, look, here's one. I've been scrolling down for I don't know how long here. I had to click on the most recent. This is from 17 hours ago, at that guy Bill 34, and he's the first one, and it says COVID jabs. It says 3. It's got 3 shot emojis, and it says glad he's still with us. There's no replies, there's no thumbs up, there's no thumbs down regarding that. That's the cause. That's the reason. See, this is the deafening silence in all of this. This is that meme where the lone person is standing surrounded by a crowd and looking at the crowd and saying, yes, you are all wrong. It doesn't mean that the person who is in the minority position on the issue is wrong. It's quite the opposite, certainly when it comes to this. I, of course, had to make a comment also. I just said COVID shots. Know this. The fact that people aren't acknowledging this, again, is certainly the problem, and whatever else the hell I said. But, you get the point. Again, these comments, people are like, well, good thing he's rich. Money can cure cancer and whatever else. Look, curing cancer isn't expensive. What's expensive is trying to get rid of the damage from the COVID shots because it's next to impossible. And once it ramps up in somebody, certainly in Deion Sanders' case, when he's never clearly taken anything even resembling what has been referred to as the cure for the COVID shots and the nanotech that's inside of these people, yeah, he's going to consistently fall apart. But what are people doing instead? They're applauding him. He's still here. He's fighting it. He's doing whatever he can. He's still coaching. He's a stronger man than you and me and blah, blah, blah. That has nothing to do with it. He's alive because his doctors are keeping him alive because, of course, yes, he has the money to do particular things a particular way. But he's not really curing it. He's replacing parts of his body that are being destroyed by his own DNA. That's called AIDS. And the only way that you stop that is by putting the things in your body that can stop that nanotech from destroying you. But again, if it's already wrecked his DNA, I don't know how you get rid of that. Which clearly it has, because he's probably still blood clotting. If I had to take a guess, I'd say he's not chewing nicotine gum. He probably can't spell ivermectin. Again, I don't wish ill on the guy. I'm just saying, this avoidance is a massive problem. So in all of the comments on Rich Eisen's show, there's 223 of them. There's only 2 that again, specifically bring up COVID, and I was one of them. I said, know this and stop hiding from it. It is the cause. It's awful. And then you had Ryan Sandberg Hall of Fame second baseman for the Chicago Cubs. He just passed away the other day here. Again, cancer, diagnosed in 2024, dies a year later. So I'm not saying that people can't be diagnosed with cancer one year and then die the next. I know that they can. I know that that happens. But take it into the context of the time we live in. And then, of course, get online and bounce around in the comments section and see how many people are acknowledging what really caused his prostate cancer. Was he jabbed? I'm just asking the question. I don't know. I don't know the man's medical history. He was a hell of a baseball player. You know, it's too bad he's gone. Same thing with anybody who took the shots. But even so, people have to acknowledge the problems here, or else they're going to continue to surround themselves with the problems, not knowing what the problem is. Case in point, and finally, one last thing here. Have you seen the commercials on TV and even on YouTube for not only the COVID lie, which I think Paxlovid was this most recent YouTube channel commercial that I saw, an ad in between two videos or embedded in a video. It's this fat white guy with a beard, and he comes out of his house and he goes, "Honey," and they're packing up the car for a vacation. Of course, it's a mixed race family. And the husband, again, looks pale and not well, and he holds up his COVID test. And then the kid goes, "Really?" You know, both kids look at the dad and go, "Really?" And then he goes, and then he looks into the camera and he goes, "Well, you know, I tested positive for COVID, so good thing I have Paxlovid," or whatever the hell drug they were pushing to try to kick so-called COVID. Well, that doesn't exist. But what does exist is a bioweapon shot that keeps making people ill on a constant basis. So, again, the evil propaganda machine is running that down everybody's throat as if to say, don't worry, if you took the shots, you're still going to get COVID. But it's not the shots that cause illness. It's this mysterious, invisible thing that doesn't exist. COVID not existing was in Q drops in the form of a question. What if C-19 doesn't exist? And that was in 2020. April of 2020, if memory serves. Again, criticize people all you want for reading the Q drops. The answer was right there. But as far as illness is concerned, this also ties in the wireless body area network. Have you seen these mosquito repellent bracelets? Mosquito Repellent X ultrasonic bracelet. These have been around since 2020. Also ironic. You plug them in, it consistently shoots out an electromagnetic signal on a constant basis, which, as we all know, is basically battery-operated radiation. Then these individuals again claim that it works, and then other people claim that it doesn't, and a number of other things. But it looks like an Apple Watch. So you get to go on a hike or you go wherever, and then you wear one of these, and then you don't get mosquitoes because they don't like the electromagnetic signal that pumps out from this watch that is, of course, attached to your person. And then people wonder why they have headaches or why they don't have feeling in their arm or why one of their hands is a different temperature than the other hand that doesn't have the device on it. Wireless body area network, ladies and gentlemen, continues to be one of the largest problems that no one's really discussing on a constant basis. Sabrina Wallace brings it up all the time, and God bless her for doing it, but people have to deny these wearables, regardless of what they're for or, again, how they're designed, what their intent is, or who makes them, or, again, whatever. It's all problematic. So, again, vote with your feet and don't buy into it. Thanks for listening as always. I greatly appreciate it, and I will catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.